We are at list with an S dot iBiblio.org. This is for my brother. He knows who he is. If I need to say his name, Mr. Scribe. This deals with a subject that he asked me to look up and to really shed a little light on. And might I say, there is a lot of light to shed. Let me first start with these things that I have copy pasted into my little word program. The first of which is sodomy, origin, uh, um, the Middle English from the medieval Latin sodomia, from late Satin peccatum sodot sodomica sodomiticum, sin of Sodom. But that is the speaking on the actual place of Sodom and Gomorrah. That is. Now, I wanted y'all to hear something before I carry forward. This word is pedication. It is a noun, mass noun, formal. It is anal intercourse. Fellatio is a noun. It is oral stimulation of a man's penis. And cunnilingus, which is oral stimulation of a woman's vagina or vulva. You understand? So, sodomy does actually not cover that. The actual definition of sodomy is oral or anal sex with the same sex, or it is bestiality. You understand? Um, um, it actually though, you cannot say that that's what it means. There is no true proof that the word means what they tried to say that it means. You understand? There is no, there is nothing that leans towards that. Um, Sodomy is also defined as any sexual act that is non-procreative. Right, right. So if it doesn't make babies, it is considered sodomy. Any form of any sexual activity. With that said, let us carry forward and let us read this article again. Once again, we are at list with an S, iBiblio.org. Take all this information with a grain of salt. What does Sodom mean? Rather than being fictional, I see the name of the five cities of the plain valley at Genesis 4:2 as being puns on the historical names of the five late Bronze Age cities in the Jezreel Valley. Let's examine here the most controversial name, Sodom. Sodom is Samek, Dalet, Sem, Dalet, Mem, /SDM, and those are all capital letters. Um, and that would be what that is, Siddim, something like that. So Sodom, right? Uh, Gesenius says that Sodom means burning or conflagration, but offers no real support for that view. Strong states that Sodom comes from unused root meaning to scorch or burnt, but once again offers no real support for such view. Certainly no historical city would mean scorched. Sodom is better analyzed as a pun on three words, two of which reference historical Beth Shan, and the third of which means scorched, foreshadowing Sodom's fiery fate depicted in chapter 19 of Genesis. We start our linguistic analysis of Sodom by noting that although Sodom itself is spelled with the Samek, this is not a root, and Samek is Samekh. So however that's I'm saying Samek. There is no root or derivative of Sodom spelled with the Samek. There is a clue to what is actually going on here. Sodom spelled with the Samek reflects a series of puns on words that begin with the sin rather than a Samek. A sin and a Samek have similar sounds. It is not clear how Samek was pronounced in the late Bronze Age. It in late biblical Hebrew, Samek had become virtually indistinguishable from sin. Uh, some say that some say that sin is a softer than Samek, but it is hard to distinguish such sounds. Even more importantly, we do not know exactly how these S-type sounds were pronounced by early Hebrews. The point is that the sounds of the Samek and sin are certainly close enough to make a pun. If we look for words similar to Sodom that begin with the sin or shin rather than Samek, we immediately find three such words. The first word is shakam or sokam, shin, sin, fak, mem, kam or kim. These are all KMs. It's just different um, symbols behind the KM to stress the different sounds. In pointed text, we do not know most of the vowel sounds, and we cannot distinguish shin, sin from shin. So this could be sokum, which sounds a lot like Sodom. This word with reference to rising and early morning is used throughout the Bible, including the patriarchal narratives at Genesis 19. 2, when the angels come to Sodom, and at Genesis 19:27, when Abraham goes to see Sodom's destruction. The first large city in Canaan proper, over which the sun was rising in the early morning, was Bethshan, located on the eastern edge of Canaan. Based on item 110 in the mid 15th century BCE, Tutmosis III lists the first attested name of Bethshan and something SJR. This means this could mean that SXR, the word for dawn, early morning. It was supposed to mean something. I can't say the word, so I'm not going to even try. Mean early morning, so that Bethshan means house of dawn or house of rising sun. Notably, the SXR appears in Genesis 19:15, immediately before Sodom is destroyed. SXR also appears in Genesis 32:24 and 32:26. SKM has closely related meaning to SXR, and the two sounds in the patriarchal narratives also have a somewhat similar sound. SKM and it's different letters. He has an S there, which is like a money sign, and then it's supposed to be like an an, you know what I mean? But that's also supposed to be like another S sound in a way that may also sounded a lot like Sodom, with only the middle sound being significantly different. In hearing about Sodom's destruction in chapter 19 of Genesis, one cannot avoid the word SKM at Genesis 19, or Caesar at Genesis 19:15, or Skim at Genesis 19:27. The author is practically forcing us to see this key set of puns on the name Sodom, so that we will know that Sodom is a patriarchal name for historical Bethshan. Bethshan is portrayed as being destroyed as the sun rises over Canaan, and Bethshan means house of the rising sun. Second, Sadap, or Sin Dalaf Pe, or Sedap. As noted above in unpointed text, we do not know most of the vowel sounds, so this would be Sadap, and we cannot distinguish sin from shin. The only place the word Sadap or Sidap is used in the Bible patriarchal narratives is Genesis 41:6, 23, and 27. Genesis says it means to blast, to scorch. The third word, redolent, of Sodom is Sedom. The third word redolent of Sodom is Sedom. Sin Dalet Yod Mem, Sidim, or Sodim, which means fields, the valley of fields, or the valley of Sidim. And the princeling ruler of Sodom is defeated in chapter 14 of Genesis. The only valley of grain producing fields, Sidim and Canaan, were the Jezreel Valley, the valleys of fields. Sidim is the Jezreel Valley. Sodom, which sounds so much like Sidim Fields, is the fields Sidim City in Jezreel City, namely Bethshan. The word Sidim or Sidim is used 3 times in the patriarchal narratives at Genesis 14:3, 8, and 10. In very close proximity to describing Sodom, the word field is in the singular is a common word in the Bible. The word fields in the plural is used 59 times in the Bible outside the patriarchal narratives. but not a single time outside of Genesis is fields spelled Siddim. At Exodus 8:9, for example, the word we have for fields is spelled Sindalet Tav, Sidit, not Siddim. It would seem that Siddim is the proper name of Valley of Fields, and the archaic is an archaic plural of field, indicating the great antiquity of the patriarchal narratives. Archaic form and proper names in the text of the patriarchal narratives could not be changed, whereas the grammar of most words in the entire Bible, including the patriarchal narratives, was updated from time to time over the centuries. As to grammar, the true antiquity of the patriarchal narratives is generally limited to proper names. If we use English letter O for each implied vowel sound for the three words above, we see that Sodom, Socom, Sodop, and Sodim are all close enough to deliberate puns. If we switch to English, letter I for the implied vowels, sound in the second syllable in each word, we would get Sodim versus Sokim versus Sodip versus Sodim. The first and fourth letters are the same, and the second and third variably are only one letter. The second and third letters vary by only one letter. The point is simply that these four words are close enough in sound to deliberate close puns that are being made by early Hebrews author of the patriarchal narratives. Note that CDM is used also in describing Sodom in chapter 14 of Genesis, and both scum, zr, are used as Abraham's views of destruction of Sodom in 19 of Genesis. That's no mere coincidence. No way. That's the author trying to make sure that we see his clever pun so that we will understand what the patriarchal nickname Sodom means. Though Gesenius, Strong's, and other scholars see only scorched, the more important two puns here are on the Sodom or Sodom in chapter 14 and 19 of Genesis are Siddim, fields of chapter 14 of Genesis, and Sikkim, rising in early morning, chapter 19 of Genesis. Recognizing those two puns is critical to understanding that by use of the patriarchal nickname Sodom, the author is specifically referencing historical Bethshan, either by describing its most obvious attribute, fields, or by making a close pun on the historical meaning of the city named Bethshan, Zizr, rising in early morning. If Bethshan originally meant house of Zizr, the Zizr, that meant that then the city name Sodom, which is redolent of Sikkim or Skim, is in turn redolent of Zizr, the historical late Bronze Age name of Bethshan. But Sodom is the patriarchal narratives is also a deliberate pun on scorched and fields. Siddim versus Siddu versus Siddim. As such, Sodom is an apt patriarchal name, being a three-level pun on rising in early morning, scorched, and fields. Rising in early morning is redolent of the historical late Bronze Age name of Bethshan and refers to Bethshan's locale on the eastern edge of Canaan with the sun, rising in the early morning of Bethshan before any other major city in Canaan. Fields, reflecting the cardinal fact that Bethshan housed Egypt's only inland Canaan garrison, which was there to guard the fertile fields of the Jezreel Valley. And scorched obviously refers to Sodom's fiery, dire fate depicted in Genesis 19, where the common words zizr and schism are used. In a subsequent post, we can discuss why Genesis portrays Sodom / Bethshan as a being burnt to the ground and never re-inhabited, despite the fact that such a thing never happened in secular history to Bethshan. It did happen historically to Katna, just north of Canaan, which is historically modeled for Sodom's fiery destruction. The early Hebrew author is warning in chapters 14 and 19 of Genesis that unless everyone now unites against the new threat posed by the dreaded Hittites, Katna's fiery demise last year may foreshadow a similar disastrous conflagration next year in the heart of Canaan, and what will be any serious invader's most logical target, the key stronghold, Bethshan. If we understand history etymology of Bethshan, we can understand what Sodom means. We then see that Sodom, rather than being fictional as scholars would have it, is instead an apt patriarchal nickname that is closely based on a historical name of a historically late Bronze Age city of Bethshan. Oh, that was painful. let me go ahead and say I do not agree with most of the things that he's saying about what he's trying to say. What I will say that I agree with is that the name of this city is obviously derived from something else, and that the meaning of what they trying to say that the city means is not what they say that it means. I will say that this man is obviously much further displaced from the time period, from the people that first took records of all it, and he does not speak Hebrew, nor does he actually know what the word is really truly supposed to mean. They are derivatives of derivatives of derivatives. At best, you have a skewed understanding. And with a skewed understanding, at best, you can give a skewed opinion. With that said, um, I'm going to post this. There's not going to be a lot of picture work behind it. I just kind of felt like, this is one of those subjects, and I don't feel like getting flagged by YouTube. So, um, yeah, um, really. This is most definitely one of those things. Um, um, and as far as man and woman having sex together, one moment, and 1 second, and people trying to say not, and trying to say that, well, that's not uh 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 uh, uh Leviticus 18. You know what I'm saying? 22. One moment. And we are going to read down. You shall not lie with the male as one lies with the female. It is an abomination. The King James Bible. Thou shalt not lay with mankind as with womankind. It is abomination. One moment. So, when it says that, right, to assume that you're laying with mankind like womankind, the assumption is that anal sex obviously could be practiced between man and a woman, uh, because a man does not have a vagina. So to say that a man to lay with a woman like, or to lay with a man like a woman, that is indicative of all sexual activity that can take place between a man and a woman. So that covers anal and oral sex. Sodom does not mean anal or oral sex by actual true definition when you actually look it up. Sodomy, like I said, could actually be described as any sexual acts that does not involve procreation. So procreation does not come from this. You do not make babies from this sexual act. If that makes you a sodomite because you have sex and it doesn't make babies, I mean, there's a lot of people who pull out. I guess you get what I'm saying. Like, like, I mean, you could call wearing condoms an act of sodomy, because technically you by practice, if you ejaculate into this condom, she's not supposed to get pregnant, and that goes against procreation. So there's different ways you could actually level this to yourself. Brother, I hope this covered it good enough. If not, I will go back to it and I will do another piece on it. um, I felt like this article was very helpful. I felt like it it made more sense out of the situation than any of the other things that I had seen. With that said, I thank you all for your time. You have a blessed day. Goodbye.